All right, welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast. Today I have on Kiri Masters. She is the founder and CEO of Bobsled Marketing, a digital marketing agency that helps establish consumer brands grow their Amazon sales. So I'm pretty pumped to have this because I have a vested interest in learning a little bit more about that. So I might get a free consultation here, but we're going to turn it into some content. So Kiri, welcome to the podcast, and I appreciate you taking the time out of the day. I know you had some running around to do and some scheduling, but I appreciate making your time.
Absolutely. It's great to be here, Anthony.
Awesome. So tell me a little more about like yourself, your background, what you're up to now.
Yeah, so like you said, and well done on picking the accent right away. That's usually the very first question I get is, so where are you from? So I'm from Australia and moved out to New York City in 2010. That's where I eventually started my company, Bobsled. And what we do is help establish consumer brands with their Amazon channel as a done-for-you agency kind of service model. And the two new things I've been working on, that I started that almost 5 years ago. Today we're a team of 30 people, all Amazon focused across advertising, marketing, operations, and a team of 4 or so individuals works with each client to make sure that their channel is managed perfectly. And it's still a fairly nascent skill set. So a lot of companies want to have at least some input from agencies. But what I found from speaking with a lot of consumer brands, large and small, frankly, ranging from a 500K a year startup kind of brand right through to some brands we've worked with 50, 100, 500 million annual revenues plus. One thing that a lot of them had in common is that if Amazon was a really important channel to them, they wanted to at least start building some capability in-house and have, Sally on the e-commerce team manage at least part of the Amazon channel, because it's becoming more and more important to these brands as a source of revenue, as a marketing channel. And so they didn't want to give up all of that control to agencies and consultants. And so that's when I started to do some interviews in earnest with some of my clients and customers, and from this group of business, from e-commerce directors and the like, and learn what they're missing. And they were really asking for some way to help train up their internal team to deal with Amazon and not always rely on outside help. And so that's what the project I've been working on for the last couple of months. It's launching soon. It's called the Marketplace Institute. And it's a way of accessing my agency's best practices through a knowledge base, being paired up in peer masterminds to learn from other individuals what's working and not for them with their Amazon channel. And then also the world's first Amazon helpline, where you can actually schedule a call and speak to someone knowledgeable for 10 or 20 minutes to resolve some of those nagging issues that you have. So that is sort of condense the last 5 years into hopefully just a couple of minutes, but that is who I am and what I do.
Awesome. So when you say brands, are you dealing with actual like where they are producing the products, or are you dealing with resellers for Amazon sales?
Yeah, the short answer is just with brands. But you bring up a really good point, and that is that the business model in retail has really changed over the last 20 years as Amazon's came into being. And retail was really going to seeing an ad on TV and going to Best Buy or Macy's or wherever and buying the product that you saw advertised on TV or in the newspaper or in a catalog or something like that. And now retailers are really getting squeezed out along with the other sort of intermediaries in that business model, distributors and import exporters, to the point where brands are going direct to consumer where at all possible. And And in the case of Amazon, Amazon really would prefer to work mostly with the brands themselves as well, because brands are the ones investing in R&D. Brands are the ones speaking with customers and figuring out what they want. Brands are the ones investing in media advertising, whereas resellers are, they're playing a game like the stock market. It's supply and demand. It's finding margins where you can. It's a little bit more opportunistic and fast moving, whereas a brand is, in theory, trying to build something that customers want over the long term. So we've seen it become harder and harder for resellers and retailers to stand out on Amazon and really continue in that sort of that business model.
Oh, awesome. Cool. So what would you, what are some key things to, if someone's looking to get started or introduce themselves into Amazon, what are the things that they need to be successful?
That's a great question. Going right back to day one. Well, you will need to, first of all, set the right expectation that once you launch on Amazon, people aren't going to be clamoring to buy your product and and checking out right away. There is a fairly long road of hard work and things that you need to learn along the way. So the first sort of foundational thing that you need to understand is Amazon is both a distribution channel, a way of getting products into the hands of customers, as well as a marketing channel. And I think that distinction's been lost on a lot of really big brands who always just saw it as a distribution channel. And now they're seeing capabilities like advertising and content and the analytics that you get out of the platform and things like that. But if you're a small brand, independent, and just getting started, the very first thing that you'll need to understand is how Amazon does work from a distribution standpoint. And there's this, if you have been following anything about Amazon, you'll know about this program called Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA. And FBA was a real game changer when it was rolled out 10 or so years ago. And what it means is that Amazon has over 120 fulfillment centers or warehouses all around the US and many internationally as well. And as a seller, you can send your inventory to Amazon and get them to fulfill every order that comes in. So all of a sudden, if you're a brand or a retailer or a reseller or a distributor, you don't need to have a warehouse with employees that are picking and packing and shipping items. You don't need to have your own FedEx account. You can just let Amazon handle all of the operational stuff involved with filling orders, handling returns, all of that kind of stuff. So this is a real game changer, and it means that there's been a huge uptick in businesses that have been built around the Amazon business model, just because they cut out that very costly, very confusing and challenging element of e-commerce for a lot of companies.
Yeah, that fulfilled by Amazon is a dream. I mean, if you can literally figure out how to market your product and just have this product delivered to them. I mean, the amount of business that the business that the team you don't have to have is amazing. So
yeah. And for the shopper as well, you get Amazon's little seal of approval, which is Prime eligibility as well. And let me ask you, Anthony, how often do you shop on Amazon? Just on average, every month or every week?
We started Subscribe and Save.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, we started getting, the stuff that we buy all the time, that we don't change the brand and all that. We started buying that. So we buy a lot of that. And then, there's other things, light bulbs that we can't find at the store. We've been able to find on there. So yeah, I mean, it's becoming more regular. I mean, I remember a few years ago, we were Apple TV, and then we came across Fire TV, and now we're all Fire TV. So, and same thing with they're starting to siphon off because of, all the same, it's all the same. You go to the one person and it becomes easy to deal with, even our
sure.
Audible, so.
Yes. Well, that's a great point. And just the ecosystem has really grown out of this sort of bookstore. And some conversations I was having 5 years ago when I started Bobsled was, well, Amazon's a place for cheap stuff, or it's just a bookstore. And people were saying that just 5 years ago. And so we've really come a long way in Amazon being the place that you buy absolutely everything. People didn't used to not think, particularly Macy's, even just a few years ago, was not really concerned about Amazon because they thought people aren't going to want to buy jeans online. And maybe, yeah, I wouldn't want to buy my first pair of jeans online from a brand. I'd want to figure out my fit and the size and everything. But once I know what size of Levi's 501 jeans fit me best, I don't need to go back to a store. If I'm particularly men, just to paint a broad brush, once you find a style and a brand and a fit and a size that you like, then why would you go back to a store and go through all of that pain? So I think that the convenience of e-commerce was vastly underestimated by a lot of these big retailers. And we're in an era where, yeah, you're buying light bulbs and you're buying things on a recurring subscription basis, and you're buying music and TV and every possible thing that can be bought online. You can buy on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a brief hiatus working for a mall developer, so we had some insight about how that's going and what they're looking at doing and stuff. And it gave me time just to sit back and reflect of like how outdated the business model is. How much square footage malls use. Like, these are some of the best pieces of real estate in the country, but they're having to reconfigure them because you just don't need that much anymore, right? The model has been broken for a long time. And,
yeah,
I was surprised. I mean, I remember going to Macy's, and like, I remember when there was a point at which I bought a suit at Macy's and they were playing the Nordstrom's game of like, yeah, we can have it tailored for you. And then when I started working and went back to that same Macy's, I was like, are you kidding me? This seems like it's gone down. It's like the quality of service and everything else. And why even go now? I mean, it's not even, once, like you said, I mean, it's once you know what you're going to get, then there's no point. Hey, one of the questions that I do want to ask is like, how can brands and agencies assemble their own all-star team? Because I'm curious on this because, part of what I talk about and teach is team building and all that stuff. Because a lot of people think, they fight initially to overcome that step of building a team, and they think they have to do it all themselves.
Yeah. It's a really good question, and something that, especially if you're in the early stages of business, I've been there. I certainly understand what it's like. Sometimes it is just you, and sometimes there's no other alternative but to really just dig in and understand everything. I remember when I started my first company, which was an e-commerce business, I was coding up my own WordPress website. I was setting up my chart of accounts in QuickBooks to do I was doing all the accounting myself and all the bookkeeping. I was filming video tutorials on the weekend for my products. And sometimes there's just no other way around it. You need to do everything yourself because you're at that very early stage and you're proving a concept perhaps. But if you have a more mature option and you're thinking about how do I resource this channel and make sure that I'm getting the most out of it and not, overspending with it as well, I think what you would need to recognize is just like me coding my own WordPress website and doing my own bookkeeping, my time is frankly better spent elsewhere doing marketing and sales and strategy and managing people. I should really be looking to bring specialists in to do those discrete things. And so it's the same with your Amazon team. The person who's running your ads and adjusting bids and doing keyword research and pulling that reporting together and looking for campaign level trends and big trends and staying up to date with all of the changes that happen, that is not the same person who should be handling your customer service. And that's generally not even the same person that should be putting your content together. So I think, first of all, recognizing all the different skill sets and roles that are required to manage an Amazon channel, that's the first step. And then figuring out, well, what am I going to outsource or bring outsource to an agency, or bring a consultant in, or hire a freelancer? Who's going to be on my team that can handle each of those discrete areas? I think that's the very first step.
Awesome. And what are some like common practices if you have too many SKUs, right? If having a lot of SKUs with the advertising or having a few SKUs, like how does that, like, what are some best practices with that? Is it disadvantage to have more SKUs and advertise them, or how does that work?
Well, it really depends on how you got to that position in the first place. I would say there's no real difference fundamentally between, besides extra administration, of having 100 SKUs versus 10 if the sales volume might be different on those 100 SKUs versus 10. So a common scenario is apparel, where I could have one t-shirt, but because I have it in 5 colors and 5 sizes, I have 25 SKUs, but that's just one product, right? Mm-hmm. So in some cases, we had a client who had literally hundreds of thousands of SKUs, because they have a massive long tail of products. They have a few that sell in quite high volume, and then they have hundreds of thousands of different iterations, colors, size, styles, materials. And so they're a fairly large company, but they need to invest in managing their catalog or managing inventory levels on a different level to someone who just has 10 SKUs. But it's not to say that the big 100,000 SKU company is bigger just because they have a lot of SKUs. It really comes down to what your approach really is. If you're looking to have a large catalog and cater to every need, then that's one strategy. Or if you're looking to really cater to a very specific type of customer and be a very, provide a really unique solution, then maybe you need less SKUs. But I don't think it's like a question of how successful will your business be based on how many SKUs you have.
Got it. So what are some mistakes like that, when someone's getting started, that people make?
That's a good question. So I think I've already mentioned the false economy that you might get from trying to hire one Amazon all-star, someone who can do everything, and that person just doesn't exist. It's just the same person someone who's great at customer service is not necessarily going to be great at PPC, is not necessarily going to be great at pulling reporting together so you can see what's going on and playing that strategist kind of role. Another mistake that people make is throwing their products up on Amazon and not really understanding how the search algorithm works, or what inputs are involved with making a product actually popular on Amazon. And so what Amazon really cares about is, out of their tens of millions of products, I haven't seen a recent count on this, but there are millions and millions of products, let alone sellers on Amazon. Out of all the millions of products, how do they rank every product in search results? It's like Google. Google is looking for, when someone's using a search term, they're looking for what's the most credible search result I can show for that search query. So if I'm searching for best cupcake bakery in the West Village, then Google's going to figure out what has been a cupcake bakery that's very popular in that area. What's a credible search result that we can show? Amazon's doing the same thing, but what they're interested in also is what kind of ROI they're going to get from showing a specific search result. And the best indicator of future performance is past performance. So they're looking at what product has performed really well in the past with sales and conversions. We're going to show that product first. So when you're first launching on Amazon, you don't have any sales history, you don't have any reviews, you don't have any credibility with Amazon's search engine. So you need to, this is a big misconception, is how quickly it's going to take to actually ramp up sales, because you're really coming from a baseline of zero, and you need to invest in content, you need to invest in advertising, you need to ideally have a brand outside of Amazon that people are willing to buy there, so that you can actually kickstart that process, and not flatline before you even got started.
Okay, that's awesome. So one thing you've been mentioning a lot is content, right? And can you give us an idea to the listeners how content works with Amazon? Because this is something, what I understand, is fairly new, and versus how it's worked in the past on other digital channels. I mean, I know Amazon's not really a social media channel, but a lot of people have sold and built their brands through content on social media. And how does it work with Amazon? The actual content.
So just to clarify, what kind of content can you add, or?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that it's content. There's some type of content strategy that goes along with building your Amazon sales. And is this content on Amazon, or is this content outside of Amazon? How does that actually work?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So just like if you're creating an e-commerce store, you can add a product description to Amazon. You can add photos. If you're a registered brand, which means you own the brand that you're selling, you can add videos. And so that kind of rich content, where it's not just basic text and 5 bullet points that describe the color and the scent or whatever it is, really maximizing the content that you have available to you is helpful to the buyer. They've got literally thousands of products to choose from if they're searching from a water bottle to markers to go back to school to a pair of tennis shoes. Like, they've got so many choices, and so you want to make it as easy as possible for them once they get to your product page to show them that your product is going to meet their needs, answer their questions, things like that. So Amazon's rolling out new content capabilities all the time. Just a couple of years ago, you couldn't, unless you were a really large brand, you couldn't add videos to your product pages, for example. Now, not most, but a lot of brands can do that. And so Amazon's also recognizing, hey, we are prepared to foot the bill of the fairly significant hosting costs of hosting all this videos and rich content. We're prepared to do that. And me reading into that is Amazon's prepared to do that and bear that cost because it helps with conversions and it helps people make a buying decision on Amazon. So I wouldn't ignore the fact that you can add all this rich kind of content, spin images, infographics. You can add, in most categories, 6 images. So you should be at the very least having not just a product image, but a lifestyle image, or if you've got a more technical product, an infographic that explains how it works and all the features. There's so much that you can do that is ultimately going to help you with conversion rates if you invest in that.
Awesome. Well, so what about some tools? Like, what are some great tools that people can use? to grow, the revenue and all that?
Yeah, so with the content and hopefully if you're in retail or e-commerce, you already have someone that you're using for visual content. Just having a great photographer, visual studio, videographer, those are all relationships that you want to build, and you want to be revisiting them over time. If you are a brand and you're selling your own brand, then you have a lot of features open to you on Seller Central around with analytics that you can look at, like how many customers bought from your brand for the first time. So you can see what kind of acquisition cost you're up against. You can see what kind of demographics, what customer demographics, what kind of people are buying from you. So a lot of the tools that you get as a registered brand can be found on Amazon, and they are really, really ramping up the quality of reporting and tools that you can actually get from within their own interface. It used to be very, 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 very Spartan, let's say. And then another tool that is native to Amazon is reading product reviews. And I think that anyone who shops on Amazon looks at product reviews when you're buying something, because that's a credible source of information for you. It's one thing for a brand to say, we have really great color saturation with our paint, but it's another thing for another customer who doesn't have any incentive really other than sharing their opinion to say the same thing. And so what you want to do is read all of your reviews, all of the reviews of your products from customers. And you also want to read the reviews of your competitors' products as well, and reviews of products that might be adjacent to yours as well, and try and figure out what features are people interested in? How could I make my product better? How could I meet a need in the market that isn't met yet? What are people talking about that they wish that they had, which I could come in and fill a need here? So I think that it's kind of an obvious one and a really easy one to access, but it's shocking how few people actually do that work of researching fully what people are saying about their products and about their brand and also about their competitors.
Awesome. So let's come back to the product or the tool. It's a course and tool or that you're launching. Let's talk a little more about that.
Yeah, it's we deliberately didn't launch a course because in my view, at least, when you're trying to skill up with Amazon, especially if you have an existing team in-house, it's kind of impossible for us to sit someone down in a chair for 2 weeks and say, here's everything you ever need to know about Amazon. And then 2 weeks, okay, you're trained, you're done, you can go out and be successful. It doesn't really work like that. There are so many situations that are very contextual, and there are a lot of programs that may or may not be a fit for you at all. For example, there's a program called Small and Light, which essentially means that you can pay less in fulfillment fees if your product is under a certain size and weight. It's just not relevant for a lot of brands who are, if you're selling furniture, completely irrelevant. You shouldn't be trained on that. So what instead we've tried to do is make it more like a wiki, like a Wikipedia kind of situation where you got a question or Amazon sent you an email about this program and inviting you to try it. And like, I don't know if does that make any sense to me? We wanted to provide all of that content on demand rather than in an actual course. So it's more of a knowledge base / wiki. That's one piece of it. The other piece that I got a lot of feedback on was for many e-commerce managers and directors within larger brands especially, they would have some kind of informal network of friends that they would send an email or a text to or chat with on LinkedIn about, hey, did you see this come out from Amazon? What are you doing about this new packaging requirement? And so a lot of these sort of sharing and learning conversations were happening amongst people's informal peer group. But a lot of people were interested in formalizing that and expanding their network of people in similar sized companies, let's say. And so we're going to set up peer masterminds. And then the final piece of the Marketplace Institute is the Amazon helpline, which was another thing. Once I heard there's no Amazon helpline for like the 5th time, I was like, oh, you know what? This seems like it's got something to it. Everyone was saying Amazon support is fairly lackluster in terms of consistency and response time. It's not always easy to get an answer, an accurate answer. And so I've been in this situation before where I'm trying to do something technical with, I don't know, with my taxes or with a website or something like that. And I'm like, you know what? If I could just speak with a really great tax lawyer for 10 minutes, I'm sure that they could just tell me, you know, here are my 2 options and maybe you should think about doing this first. And so we've all had those instances where we just love to speak with an expert to help us, like, give us some direction, give us some clarity. And so that's really what the Amazon helpline is set up for as well, is that there's all these sort of technical questions, very situational, maybe not, you know, not many other people have the same issue as you, so there's no blog posts about it. And so we're doing 10 or 20 minute calls that you can schedule with an advertising, marketing, or operations expert, so they can help you figure out what your next step should be.
Awesome. So where did anybody go to find out about, you know, you or the Marketplace Institute?
Sure. So the Marketplace Institute is just themarketplaceinstitute.com. And we are, I'm not sure when this episode airs, but we're officially opening our doors with that on the 16th of September. And as for me personally, if you want to connect with me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. And if you send me a connection request, and especially if you let me know that you listen to this podcast, I'll definitely accept your request, and you can keep up with me there as well. I'm Kiri Masters.
Awesome.
On LinkedIn.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time, and, you know, I appreciate you sharing your journey and what your experience is, and, you know, answering these questions. So I bet a lot of people are going to be helped out by this.